Welcome back to the channel. So here today I've got the car that we call Project Bad Decision. If you've followed this channel a little bit, especially some of the lives, you maybe seen a few things alluded to on this car or seen in the background. I bought the car in the winter, last winter. I don't really have any idea what I'm going to do with it. It came with enough parts to turn it into a running driving car with a couple exceptions. I think it's short a drive shaft and a transmission K-member and or cross member and some seats. Probably a few other things if you get down to brass tacks on it, but there's most of a car here. And in fact, there's parts of it where there's multiple parts, like I actually got a couple engines with it. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. We've talked about maybe doing a Godzilla swap. I think that would be a cool project. It's an expensive project, and I wonder if that's a project that hasn't quite matured. If I should sit tight for a year or so. There's new parts coming out constantly, like Holley's new manifold just came out. I don't know, I got a message yesterday saying Holley's new manifold just came out. So it may be that we're better off to wait a year or two on that and see what shakes out of these Godzilla projects. Now, I hardly know where to start with it or if I even should, but the first thing that really needs to happen is these tires need to go. The tires that somebody put on this car are way too big. It even rubs with the nose up in the air with no engine in it, just pushing it around the shop. So it's an impediment to even pushing the thing around the shop. And on top of it all, for some inexplicable reason, they put winter tires on. It's beginning of October at the time of this filming, so it's a good time to get these tires off and put them in marketplace, try and get them sold. I've collected some kind of used up tires that are a better size for this car over the summer. They're not great tires, but they'll make good shop rollers. So I'm gonna see if we can't get these tires off, get the replacement shop roller tires on, and get these sold. But like anything with a project like this, there's always an impediment. The guys who had this car were desperately afraid of someone stealing stuff off of it. So each of these wheels has two separate lock nuts. I have a key that came with the car that I think fits one of the style of lock nuts. They're different style lock nuts. And that key is damaged. It's not in great shape. Maybe it'll go on some, maybe it won't. The other lock nut that's on here, there is a key, but it doesn't look like it's the right key. It doesn't fit. So we're gonna have to find a way to get these lock nuts off in order to get the wheels off, in order to get the tires switched. So that's problem one, and I don't think this is a super uncommon problem when you have a project like this, or you buy a used Mustang from somebody. Sometimes it's got lock nuts and you don't have the key. So today's video is really going to be about how do we get the wheels off of a car like this where we don't have the key or the key is damaged. There are a few strategies that you can use to try and get wheels off of a car like this where you don't have the key. The first obviously is try to come up with a key. Now sometimes you can identify the lock nut that's on there and you can buy a key set from somebody like Amazon. This will be a set of wheel keys that are designed for these wheels that have a regular non-hex outside pattern to the nuts. That's not a terrible strategy. I did one for a guy here a year or so ago where the car was good. It needed to come up with a wheel key, and I managed to actually find a wheel key. For that project, it seems to me that key ended up costing me something like $20 for just one, because the ones that were on the car were bigger or different somehow than what was in a set that you could buy, and I think a set was not terribly different, $20, $30. This particular car has deep wells where the lug nuts are, which makes it extra challenging because you can't put anything that's too big inside there or you're going to damage the wheels. The wheels are nice, so we don't want to damage the wheels. There are two styles of locking nuts on here. One is a style that would fit probably a key something like this, and you can see it's got a kind of a regular non-hex style interval around the edge. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that this is the key for the one of the set of locking nuts that are on here. But this key is damaged. I don't really know if the camera's going to show up, but the little tabs in there have been damaged, probably with use of an air tool or something. It's not in very good shape and doesn't go on that easily. The other style of lock nut that's on here is one that uses a key like this. And this is the key that they gave me, but it does not fit. If the key doesn't fit with this, you've got some real problems, because the head of these nuts is bigger than a standard nut, and it fills out this deep wheel well pretty fully. So it makes it really difficult to get something around the outside of it. So what if you don't have the keys? What if the keys don't fit? What are you going to do? Well, there are remover tools like this. This is a remover tool which can be used to slip over a hex nut or over one of these irregular shaped nuts, and it will, as you turn it, as you turn it off, it's designed to be used to remove, it will jam on there or lock on there and allow you to turn the nut off. So that's an option, and it's one that we may have to use on one of these style of nuts. The other real solution to this, especially for one that uses this style and the head of the nut is too big, is to take and weld like a 1/2 inch hex nut onto the end of the locking nut, and then use a 1/2 inch socket to turn that off. So another method that sometimes guys use to get a lock nut off, and it's not possible with everything, especially the rounded edges style that use a key like this, is to just hammer a cheap socket onto the nut. Now, if you just got one you've got to get off, that's not so bad, but pretty often it destroys the socket. So if you got 4, you might have to have 4 of the same size of cheap sockets, and you're probably better off to use a remover tool like this. So I think we've got a combination of things we're going to try here in order to try and get these wheels off. Maybe we'll get some of these nuts off with this damaged key. Maybe we'll get some of them off with this remover tool, and I'm almost positive that for the one that uses this style of key, we're going to have to do weld-ons and take them off that way. So let's give it a try and see how we do. So the wheel key might work for this, but you don't need a tutorial for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with this remover, and you can see the way it's designed. It's designed so that it will bite as you try to take the thing off. So we're going to stick that on here, try and get that over that outside edge, and we'll see if it comes off. First, let's see if it slides on, and it sort of does. Now, when you do this, you want to provide an inward pressure to try and get the thing to bite. Let's try this. It'd be great if it was really that easy. Let's see. Yes, it's definitely turning out. So I think we're going to get these ones. That would be awesome. And that's one, yes, one less complication. And you can see the style of lock nut this is. It probably fits that wheel key, but not that well. Okay, well that was easy. I'm also 100% sure when it comes to this one, our only choice is going to be to weld a nut on there. But if we've reduced this problem to just one lock nut that has to be taken off, it makes it that much easier. Well, it was all set to show you the weld-on method in order to get one of these lock nuts off. But I tried this key again, even though I was pretty sure it didn't fit. And lo and behold, it did fit into here. I actually have a hard time fitting this together even when it's all loose in my hand. So maybe it's no wonder that I was having a hard time getting it on the car. But the lesson is, if you do have a key, really give it the old college try before you resort to weld on, because it might fit, and this one actually did. So if I had to resort to a weld on, here's what we would have done. We would have taken a MIG welder, and we would have taken a 1/2 inch nut like this, just put it over the end of the locking nut, and then welded it on the inside. So you always weld the inside. You don't want to damage the outside of the nut. Even in a tight wheel well like this, that kind of a stunt will allow you to do that. You can get the wire in there. If you do that, try and get it as centered as you can. Well, it's not critical, but you should try to get it as centered as you can. Weld it hot, turn the welder up. If it's rusted, that heat is going to permeate through the thing, and you know, it will help to loosen the threads anyway. And then you can put a socket on here and turn it out. So that's what we would have done if I hadn't been able to make the key work. Even though I tried it on a couple other occasions and I couldn't get that key to go in, as a last check, I gave it a serious attempt, and it went in on one of them, and I was able to get it out. The weld-on trick is the surefire trick to deal with this kind of problem if you really don't have a key, or if the key really doesn't fit. Now we got the critical lock nuts off. Let's get this thing in the air and get these wheels and tires off. Switch to some tires that we can roll the thing around in the shop. Maybe we'll get a little closer look at the brake conversion, the disc brake conversion that was done, and see what those parts really are. If you have to resort to a chrome socket for clearance with air tools, use eye protection because it might explode. Big difference in diameter. Look at this. I'd say that's just about squared up. Look at that. Okay, I'm going to have to do a little bit of research here, but if I was to hazard a guess here, these rotors are like 10.5 or 11 inches, something like that. It's got some kind of PBR twin piston caliper. It's not exactly the same as on a SVT Cobra, and the brakes are too small to be Cobra setup. But if I had my guess, I would guess this was like SN95 Mustang fronts. And about the spindles, perhaps the spindles have been changed in order to fit these brakes. In fact, it's more than likely. You can see there's struts and springs and stuff. This car actually has quite a bit of nice stuff underneath. Then back here, I'm pretty sure that these are SN95 discs on the back. They're like a 10-inch disc, and you know, it's Ford part number caliper. I'm pretty sure that this is either off like a 94, 95, or maybe even later. And it's also possible, I guess, that the whole rear end has been salvaged out of an SN95 Mustang. It's possible. I'd have to measure the width to know for sure. But that looks like what that is. And again, there's springs back here, no control arms, and somebody has deleted the quad shocks, which isn't a good idea if you don't put control arms in. So obviously it needs one or the other. I think we made a decent start on this project. The car sits and looks a lot better now. It's going to be a lot easier to move around the shop with these more appropriately sized tires. I salvaged a set of snow tires that I can sell to somebody, so probably get a couple of bucks for those. And I've had a closer look at the brakes, and no more impossible lock nuts on the car. So that's a tiny but good little step on the way to maybe putting this car back in service. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell so that you won't miss out on future videos.